This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out here in Belfast, joined by Mark Dunlop in his gym. Mark, first of all, thank you very much for having me here, and how is everything?
Joyce, yes, thanks very much for coming to the gym on your day off, as I say, and your first time in Belfast. Yes, no, things are good after the upset of obviously losing John Cooney a couple of weeks ago. It's been a devastating few weeks for everyone involved in boxing, not only here but like around the world, because none of us like to see this in sport, and I didn't want to see it in my door. Nobody over here did. It's been the first time it's happened.
I think we'll start with that. It's been a very tough few weeks, especially seeing the news and what happened with John. How have you dealt with that, first of all, I guess you could say?
Well, leading up, it was our first show with the BBC, with them back in boxing. It was a big thing. John was the first live fight that the BBC's had in over 15 years. I think Audley Harrison might have been the last guy to potentially fight on the BBC. I couldn't tell you who it was, but I know it was a long time. And we wanted an exciting contest to open up the show to terrestrial television. And John was obviously matched with Nathan Halls from Wales for a defence of his Celtic title. It was a fight that we all really fancied, and obviously so did they. They took it on. The both fighters were well matched, and it lived up to everything like that it was meant to be. We all expected to go the distance, and it nearly didn't. John nearly took Nathan out in the first round. Would have been scratching my head trying to explain to the BBC that this is boxing. You can't guarantee. But John just wasn't there that night, and wasn't at the races, and it didn't go well, and he collapsed after the show, and we were had people injured on shows before, but never to that level. But everything seemed okay. We turned around and said, that obviously he was taken straight to hospital. The medical teams were fantastic. They had him in the ambulance within 9 minutes, and unbeknown to me at that time, he was on the operating table in 30 minutes. That was after an MRI scan. So it was all well organised and well done. But whenever he left, he was conscious, and I was thinking after the show, I'll just go up to the hospital and check in on him, because I think at that point I thought he'd been taken, we all did, for a precautionary measure to see how things went. And when I got up there, I nearly collapsed, to find out that he was under the operating table, because it was just the worst nightmare, for not only for me but family and everybody in boxing. So it was very, very sad time. The week afterwards was unbelievable, because we were all living in hope, but also trying to, the media were starting to make up things. We had with media obligations. I didn't really want to talk about it. We were just trying to pray for him to get better, but it was a public event, and we had to do a few bits and pieces to let people know what actually was going on, because like anything, if you don't give them news, they make it up. So but we had hope, and then obviously he passed away on the Saturday, a week afterwards. I don't know how it got leaked out, but it got leaked out, and so all of a sudden it was like wildfire. That was the latest thing, which took the shine off a couple of other shows, because that was the second week. Ian Wilson had the second BBC show in Scotland, and even the referee that was in charge of the Cooney fight that night, it was you could see in the ring he had just found out as well. Everyone was just in complete shock. So it was devastating to see, and then obviously then whenever John's family were amazing, and it was John's wishes and our wishes that he basically donate his organs, and so he actually saved 5 lives, even though he lost his own. It was very, very hard, and they were very brave to do that. It's a hard thing to do, but so once all that was all done, obviously his funeral in Ireland here, funerals are all done very quickly, and John's funeral was on the Friday in Galway, so we all headed down, and it was incredible. It was what a turnout, and the family were so brave. It was just unbelievable. And obviously he was buried on the Friday, and then it was just like, I knew this was coming. These fight weeks are coming, and fighters on here too. I didn't know what I was going to do myself personally. I thought potentially I would pack it in, and I sat and I talked to my wife, talked to some of the lads, and they said, and talked to even to John's family, and like, if we'd have walked away from it, you know, it would be like, we'd be doing John even no justice. We just didn't want to give anything in, or up. Sorry. So we're going to fight on, and we're here at Fight Week now for Tommy McCarthy v Stephen Ward. That's the fight that we've got on the show, and then obviously like Lewis Crocker v Paddy Donovan. It's going to be a fantastic event, as you know. But as I say, the last few weeks have been tough for everybody, but everybody also has rallied round. I'd like to give, even I mentioned the Europa Hotel were fantastic. They put up John's family, Eddie Hearn, which people think he does deserve his recognition. I have a close relationship with him, and he was one of the first on the phone, you know. And they're going to, Eddie himself's going to pay for John's funeral. People that should know that, and they're going to do something special for John. We even talked about that yesterday at the presser, myself and Eddie. But it's all still raw. Conor McGregor, which I set a GoFundMe page up, and Conor McGregor put £20,000 on it. That's unbelievable. You know, the whole boxing community turned around to support, you know, John and his family, and obviously like that was very good. The British Boxing Board of Control have been fantastic. You know, everyone has rallied around to try and ease some of the pain, although I would give it all up to have John back. You know?
How beautiful has it been to see the support that John Cooney and his family have had from the box, especially as John wasn't one of those big stars of the sport who's been selling out arenas, but to see the boxing community come together in the way they have to raise money for him to make sure that his legacy will live on.
Yeah, well, that's been incredible. It brought a tear to my eye, and what I'm saying is, like, it just shows you how close we all are. And as I say, in some of the media obligations I had to do after the event, my own event, like, you know, it was good. It was then become clear that how close knit the boxing community is, and it was all nice words for John, because John was a showman too. He'd be watching down now, loving all the attention. He loved it. He was a dream. Like I have a few fighters on my books, but I don't just sign anybody. I sign kids that I believe in, and John was one of them ones that I believed in, and where he didn't have maybe a fantastic amateur pedigree, he made up for it in all the other ways. So, you know, to have someone like John, you know, and to look after him, and he stayed with me. He lived with my wife and family, and whenever he was up here and he was training, you know, he trained in this gym with Dan. Dan done his corner, then he won the title. Dan runs my gym, and you know, it was just so surreal to see everybody pulling together.
Since John's passing, there's been a bit of a call from certain people for boxing to be banned again. Also, we've seen this big debate before. What is your view on that? Well,
my view is boxing 100% saves more lives than it ruins. Not even takes, ruins. And the amount of kids that have transformed their lives the minute they've walked into a boxing gym, including my own, is phenomenal. I mean, even in some of the interviews I've been doing over the last few weeks, I've been saying, really, like, you know, like, motor racing's really big, motorcycle racing in Northern Ireland here where we are, and like every year, even when they have that Isle of Man TT or the Northwest 2000, it's a big motor race over here, everyone's waiting to see how many people lose their lives, not how many people get injured, because the fatalities in that are phenomenal. Horse racing's the same, all the other sports, and last week as well, as I said, didn't a jockey die, you know, of the same injuries as John did, you know, fell off the horse or whatever, and even though he had a helmet on, he damaged. That was just the way it is. It's a tough sport, but it is a sport, and John's family wouldn't want boxing themselves to even stop, because it's something that John lived and ultimately died for.
I want to obviously pay tribute to John here. How did you first start working with John? How did you first discover him?
So one of my other good kids at the time was a guy, Eric Donovan, who fought Salfa Bar. I think you maybe remember, on a Matchroom card. I think it was in maybe potentially in Eddie's back garden. I can't remember when it was, but anyway, John, I went down to watch Eric training in Dublin, and he was sparring John Cooney because John was a southpaw and wanted to be, he wanted something different because Barrett was a switcher and all that. And I went down, and to be honest with you, and Eric will tell you himself, he dropped Eric. He was very impressive that day. And I remember leaving thinking, if the opportunity ever come up to sign that kid, I would. He was what he lacked for in the amateur experience, he had like great dedication. So, every boxer finds their level, and basically, we were still trying to discover John's level, but he was getting better every fight, which was really good. And when the opportunity came up to sign him, I jumped at it.
What was John like as a fighter, not just in the ring, but out the ring, in terms of his mentality? What mentality did he go by when he was training and fighting? Very,
very, very dedicated. Every fighter that is on my books are very, very dedicated. That's one of the things I ask for. I'm not in this to make somebody famous. I'm in this for champions. So I know the only way you can become a champion is to be very dedicated, because whenever you meet someone that with the equal, you get to a certain level, the skills are nearly the same. So it's the one that's more dedicated normally pulls through. I've had to make the decisions in the past with many fighters where you maybe have a bigger ticket seller, but someone more dedicated, and the ones that have stuck with the dedication always pull through and won titles for me,
And John's biggest night was arguably that night on the Katie Taylor Chantel Cameron undercard when he won that Celtic featherweight title, or super featherweight title. How special was that night, not just for him, but for you as his manager and the team and the family? How special was that night?
Well, it was very, very special, because John really wanted to fight for the Irish title. John was born in England and boxed in Bournemouth, of all places, as an amateur, and then moved back here with his family who were from here. So he qualified for an Irish licence and a British licence. There was something went on at some point where he, with the Irish Commission, I can't remember what it was, they wouldn't give him a licence because something to do with his coach at the time, or I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it was always his dream and aspirations to fight for the Irish title, but it didn't come over, so this was the next best thing. But to do that, he had to go to Dublin, where they'd refused him a licence. So it meant the world to him to go into the Lions Den and win the title in devastating fashion. And that night, you can't say he stole the show, because the main event was unbelievable. Katie Taylor was brilliant that night. But what I'm saying is, he made it the John Cooney show that night. And if you watch it back, I watch it back often, even coming into the ring, the whole lot. He's fearless. John was fearless,
How should John be remembered by the boxing community?
He should be remembered by the boxing community as someone who people should aspire to be like, which is like a really, really dedicated fighter who never took any shortcuts and was willing to fight anybody. That if I said something, give him a name, he would jump at it, or he would even call people out. He was forever calling. Unfortunately, and the way things worked, because he'd hurt his hand, he was actually offered a shot at Rhys Bellotti. That was what he wanted. It wasn't necessarily Rhys Bellotti. He wanted to obviously the end fight for the British title, and he wasn't shy to call people out, everything. And it hurt his hand. Funny, it hurt his hand in training, believe it or not, and had an operation and went to Australia for a few months to recover. And during that time, the call came up, but he couldn't do it because he just had surgery in his hand. So if you ask me how John Cooney should be remembered as a true, real warrior.
What was John like away from boxing? Obviously, you worked with him throughout a lot of his career, and obviously, I'm guessing spent a lot of time with him, not just in the gym and on fight nights, but just on a personal scale.
Yeah.
What was John like as a person?
John was, honestly, Dan, my coach, will tell you, all the kids that we bring up here, some of them, it sounds crazy, some of them would piss on the floor. They wouldn't. He would stay in my house, John. No, he was one of the few that I would, let stay. He insisted, and he'd done all his meal preps. He'd done everything for himself. He wouldn't take, the that sort of help. He was, when he left the house to come to the gym, he made his bed. You know what I mean? Now, and funny, I talked to his mum about that a couple of weeks ago. I said he's well brought up. Or some of the people that have stayed with me over the years, they wouldn't basically lift a pea off the floor, So yeah, he was a real gentleman and a pleasure to have in the house, and it was devastating for my whole family to lose him,
And just lastly, what legacy does John leave behind?
Well, that's another thing. We talked about that, and we were talking about that yesterday with Eddie as well. They want to do something also that no one ever forgets about him. Everyone who knew him, it'll take a lifetime to forget him. But even we talked about this with my area here. So we're the Northern Ireland area here, with the British board, and we'd even talked about a potential trophy, like a memory. We have one at the minute. It's called the Eddie Shaw Trophy for the Northern Ireland Boxer of the Year. But we talked about maybe doing a shield or something to give to British boxer board of control boxers who are actually potentially under 10 fights coming through. And as I say, the other title, John would have surely been in the running for that this year had he have won that fight. So it'd be nice to have something, a lasting memory where his name will live down in the boxing world here.
Absolutely. Mark, I'll leave it there. I think it's a beautiful tribute you've given there. Yeah. And lastly, may John Cooney rest in peace.
Yes, thanks very much. Cheers.